The southernmost major cruise port in Vietnam, Phu My is a gateway to a number of different parts of the country. It provides access to the coastal beach town of Vung Tau and also to Ho Chi, where you can take a tour of the vast underground tunnel system that started during French occupation and was then used during the war in Vietnam. However, for most visitors, Phu My will be the gateway to experience the incredibly vibrant Ho Chi Minh City. Welcome to our introduction to the Phu My Vietnam Cruise Port. Hey everyone, Jeremy here, and thanks for tuning in as we provide an introduction to the Phu My Cruise Port in Vietnam. Now, this has long been one of my all-time favorite Southeast Asian cruise ports. However, to get the most out of your time here, it does take some planning. You might have been doing your research on the region leading up to your cruise, and maybe flipping through some guidebooks and sort of wondering if your Phu My section had actually fallen out of the book. Perhaps you thought it was such a sought after section and that it was so important that someone might have ripped it out of the book before you had the chance to buy it at the store, because that's the only part of Vietnam they were interested in seeing. Well, not quite. The Port of Phu My is an industrial complex with multiple docking locations spread far apart from each other, located approximately 40 miles or 65-kilometer drive southeast of Ho Chi Minh City. At the port itself, there's very little in the way of amenities. In the past, there hasn't really been any local tourist information assistance, nor has there been access to Wi-Fi at the port upon arrival. Another important note here, on our most recent visit to the ports, there hasn't been public restrooms ashore at the port, so when stepping off the ship, the vast majority of travelers will then be getting some form of transport for likely an hour-long drive, so make sure to use the bathroom before getting off the ship. Planning for this port is key because everything to see is a long distance away. Transport really is required. Now, your cruise line will offer an array of different tours and will very likely offer what's called a transfer to Ho Chi Minh City, which is essentially a cruise line provided round-trip bus ride into the city with a set departure time from the ship. Once the transfer bus gets to the drop-off location in the city, you'll then have independent free time to explore on your own before meeting the bus back at that same place at a set time later in the day. Again, typically it's in the exact same location as where you got dropped off. Now, this isn't so much a tour as it is a form of transport to get you there. However, they are typically booked through your onboard shore excursions team. Alternatively, you could look at taking a local taxi driver. Now, these aren't often found inside the cruise terminal gates. More often than not, it is a long way to get outside of the port gates to actually find them. Now, I've written an article on how best to negotiate a day's transport with a local driver, so I'll link the description for that down below. But the key thing here is that you should always have the same driver that took you into the city bring you back. That is because there are multiple different docking locations that are actually located miles apart from each other. And trust me, I've heard so many horror stories of people missing the ship all aboard time because they took one driver one way in from the port and then tried to have a different driver bring them back to the city trying to cut the cost down, but that driver just didn't know where to go. So now let's take a look around the city and some of the key places to visit. Often still referred to as Saigon by many residents and visitors alike, this city was romantically referred to by the French as the Pearl of the Orient. Ho Chi Minh City today is a supercharged city of sensory overload. Motorbikes zoom day and night along the wide boulevards, through the narrow back alleys, and past vendors pushing handcarts of hawked goods of all description. The city is Vietnam's largest and the engine driving the country's current economic resurgence. Despite its frenetic pace, it's a friendly city and locals won't hesitate to tell you that their food here, simple, tasty, and incorporating many fresh herbs, is some of the best on the planet. As we mentioned earlier, it is around a 40-mile or 65-kilometer drive to get into the city, and whilst impossible to see everything that the city has to offer in just one day, the great thing about it is that many of the must-see historic and cultural visitor sites are all located close together in an area known as District 1. As you can see here on this map, within this one district of the city alone, you have so much to see and do. If you are fairly active, this district is pretty walkable, especially if you have access to a mapping app on your smartphone and you can see the scale of the map in the corner. Whilst known for its historic French colonial architecture and important political sites, let's actually start along the Saigon River at one of the more modern buildings, the Bitexo Tower. This building is often a stopping point on tours, and actually many cruise lines use this as the drop-off and pickup point for their city transfer buses that we actually talked about earlier. The tower is a symbol of contemporary Ho Chi Minh City, and you can enjoy high-altitude views from the Saigon Sky Deck on the 49th floor. This deck features interactive screens that provide information about a selection of streets and sites below. It is approximately $9 equivalent to go up to the Sky Deck area, and the tower is in walking distance of everything that you'll be coming to see. So let's take you through a short list of some of Saigon's finest. From the tower, to get to the heart of the political and historical sites, take a walk up Nguyen Hue Street. This is a large pedestrianized section to get away from the scooters, and as you head up the street, it'll take you towards City Hall. However, on the way, while you'll pass along lots of shops and restaurants, keep your eyes out for this building. Now, it should be on your right as you walk up the street, and it's the Cafe Apartments building. Originally a residential apartment building, it was constructed in the mid-20th century. Over time, the apartments have been transformed into a collection of eclectic cafes, boutique shops, restaurants, and art galleries. The contrast between old-world exterior and the trendy modern interiors create a distinctive atmosphere that attracts visitors. Here you'll find all kinds of food shops, clothing, boutiques, and unique artsy stores, often run by many of the city's younger creative generation. Then a little further up Nguyen Hue Street, this time on the left-hand side, you'll find not only one of the many great hotels in District 1, but also a famous spot for war correspondence, and that is the Rex Hotel. It played a major role in the war in Vietnam, hosting the American Information Service's daily 5 o'clock Follies press briefings, and the 1976 unification of North and South Vietnam was announced in the exact same room. It's a great spot for lunch, albeit not the cheapest. Then, in the middle of the street with City Hall as the backdrop, you'll see the city's main statue dedicated to Ho Chi Minh. The City Hall, also known as the People's Committee Building Saigon in central Ho Chi Minh City, features beautifully well-preserved French colonial architecture. Originally constructed as a hotel in 1898, it now serves as a city hall and one of the city's most iconic landmarks. Although it's not open inside to the public, it is still worth checking out because of its beautiful architecture, and very likely you'll be passing by anyway. And then just around the corner is the oldest hotel in the country, Hotel Continental. It was here that British writer Graham Greene, who was a long-term guest in room 214, conceived the work The Quiet American, about the transitional period between the French colonists and the American Empire in the Vietnam War. The Continental features prominently in The Quiet American in both the book and the film by the same name, starring Michael Caine. The Continental also is a central location in the movie Indochine, which won 2 Academy Awards and a Golden Globe. And then just across the street is the Saigon Opera House. Also known as the Municipal Theatre of Ho Chi Minh City, it is an elegant colonial building at the intersection of Le Loi and Dong Quai streets. The restored 3-story, 800-seat opera house was originally built in 1897 and is used for staging not only opera, but a wide range of performing arts, including ballet, music concerts, and traditional Vietnamese dance and plays. If you actually have an overnight stay here on your cruise or even a later departure in the evening, you could look into the theatre performance schedule here. We then continue further up into District 1 to the Central Post Office. This grand edifice is a glorious example of the French colonial architecture that dots the city's landscape. Built between 1886 and 1891, it'll give you the feeling that you've been transported back to the Indo-Chinese Empire, even though it's still very much a functioning post office. Right across the street from the post office is the Notre Dame Cathedral. Officially known as the Basilica of Our Lady of Immaculate Conception, this neo-Romanesque cathedral, built by the French in 1880, was once a prominent presence on the city skyline. The Notre Dame Cathedral is located at the top of Dong Quai Street. Here, in this image, you can see the proximity between the cathedral and the post office. Looking at this photo, if you were then to walk left from the cathedral, there is this tree-lined park. Walk through that park and it will take you straight in the direction of the Reunification Palace. This is one of the more potent symbols of the war in Vietnam. On April 30, 1975, a North Vietnamese army tank smashed through the main gate of what was then known as Independence Palace, ending one of the bloodiest conflicts in recent memory. The current building replaced the elegant French colonial-style Notre Dame Palace, which was bombed by fighter jets in 1962 in an unsuccessful attempt to assassinate South Vietnam's president. The jet, along with the tanks that ended the war, are on display on the grounds. Just note that at the time of recording this video, that the palace closes between 11 AM and 1 PM before then reopening in the afternoon, so just plan your time accordingly and keep an eye on the opening hours in the lead up to your visit. And along the theme of war-related sites, the next spot is the War Remnants Museum. Formerly known as the Museum of Chinese and American War Crimes, the War Remnants Museum takes an unflinching, if rather one-sided look at Vietnam's turbulent past. The graphic photographs show the war's impact on Vietnam's civilian population during the Vietnam War. The museum is set across multiple levels, each with a different theme. In the entrance courtyard, there are a series of military planes and vehicles from the war. This is another site that does have a lunchtime closure. At the time of recording, it was closing between 12 and 1:30 PM. On to a lighter note, for those interested in doing some shopping, whilst the city has a number of big modern shopping malls, the best local shopping experience has to be a visit to the Ben Thanh Market. Here you'll find everything from flip-flops to pickled vegetables to knockoff designer goods, all piled high at hundreds of stalls. Now bargain hard, as you'll definitely be able to lower the price. Most of the market is undercover in the building, but make sure to walk around the outside of the perimeter to see things like the fresh produce and the fish markets. Now this isn't the only market in this area, there is also the Ben Thanh Food Market. If you want to try out some local cuisine, come here for some fresh dishes, curries, banh mi, and of course, mango sticky rice. So coming back to the map, here you can see again all of these places that we've just covered. It is important to mention that there is so much more to the city than just these sites. This is just one district. They are, however, some of the most commonly asked about places when we do take cruise ships here. And if you really have never been and have just one day, this is the area that is really most recommended for a combination of history, shopping, food, and architecture. Now, if you've been here before and are looking for something a little bit different, or aren't particularly just that keen on being in the hustle and bustle of the big city, you do have some other options. Firstly, a unique experience could be to take a tour of the Cu Chi tunnels. Cu Chi, now an outlying district of Ho Chi Minh City, was the Viet Cong base of operations during the war. The base was underground in a vast system of tunnels that thwarted Allied detection for most of the war. The tunnels are now regarded as a symbol of resilience and enterprising nature of the Vietnamese people. In total, there are what's left of a 250 kilometer or 155 mile underground network of field hospitals, command posts, living and eating quarters, and traps. However, they are a further 20 miles or 30 kilometers away from the ship than even Ho Chi Minh City is. So based on that distance away, it is likely a good option to be taking a tour here. Your ship shore excursions team will likely have a tour going there if you are interested. Now, quite often this is a very hot part of the country, so if a beach day is something that you're more interested in, Vung Tau might be the spot for you. Known as Cap Saint-Jacques during colonial times, Vung Tau was a popular beach resort for the French, and later during the war, it became a major base for the US and Australian armies. Vung Tau is a coastal getaway for those looking for a relaxed day, and whilst many tourism amenities are aimed at local tourists here rather than potentially international tourists, it does make for an interesting place to visit. There are some interesting sight points in the city as well, including the Christ the King statue. Just as Rio has Christ the Redeemer, Vung Tau has Christ the King. It is a 32 meter or 105 foot high statue looking out over the South China Sea with outstretched arms. So just to recap these distances to these further journeys on this map, Phu My to Vung Tau is 25 kilometers or 15 miles southeast. Phu My to Ho Chi Minh City is about 80 kilometers or 50 miles away. And then from Ho Chi Minh City to the Cu Chi tunnels is another further 20 miles or 30 kilometers. So again, this is a place with so many great options, but transport is going to be your best friend here. So on that note, let's get into some practical tips on how to get the most out of your visit here. Before we do though, if you have found this video helpful so far, it really would mean a lot if you did click that like button down below. And if you'd like to get more helpful videos like this one, we'd really appreciate your support by just simply clicking that subscribe button below. And then if you tap the bell, you'll then be notified when we do post new videos. All right, so circling back around to the port area, I can't stress this enough, that this is a day where you really do need to plan your transport. There really is minimal options and services at the port, and certainly nothing to walk to as far as sightseeing options. So if you are looking to take local, independent transport, my suggestion is go early. As soon as you can get off the ship, get out and go. There will be likely many more guests on your cruise ship than there are local drivers available, so don't miss out on getting transport. You don't want to risk it. Now, I'll also leave that link below to the post that might be helpful to you with regards to how much you should be paying for these drivers. And if you just want the safety and security of knowing your transport is taken care of though, do check out your cruise line's tours and also those transfer options that we did mention. Now, as far as currency goes, the currency here is the Vietnamese dong. Now you can see here at the time of this recording, the value of commonly used currencies by cruisers around the world in relation to the Vietnamese dong. Now many places will accept US currency in the city, especially taxi drivers. However, if you are needing to pay things like entrance fees for some of the local sites like the museums, having local currency will be handy. Now another tip for you, and maybe a slightly strange one, but if you are on a tour or a transfer bus that does go to that Bitexco Tower we talked about, you may wish to take advantage of the fact that there are public restrooms there. You will likely have come off a long bus or a car ride, so just knowing that these facilities there are available to you is a great thing because they're at the base of the tower. You don't have to pay to go up the top just to use the bathroom. So just a tip for you. Now, speaking of the word tipping, it isn't really a huge part of the culture here. However, a common approach to think about is that whilst tipping is not expected, it is appreciated. Now, if you're also in the city and seeking a place to find some Wi-Fi, one of the local coffee chains, such as Highlands, is a popular one. Con Cafe is another one that are both good options for some nice Vietnamese coffee and a decent Wi-Fi connection. So this should get you off to a good start with planning your cruise ship visit to Phu My or the gateway to Ho Chi Minh City. There's so many options of things to see and do. And yes, based on the travel, it can be quite a long day. But you'll often notice on your cruise itinerary that it's common to have a sea day either right after it or right before it. So you've got plenty of time to rest up around this day so you can get the most out of it. So thanks very much for watching and enjoy your time in Ho Chi Minh City.